minutes. Lots that you can ask her about. Maybe what we've been talking about in the 5 o'clock hour today on Iraq. Is Tony Blair right with the comments that he's made over the weekend? Why don't you listen to Tony Blair any longer about anything, really? And also, was Ed Miliband right to pose with that copy of The Sun? Five minutes past 7 now. If you want to watch us on the website, this is all being streamed live at lbc.co.uk. I do apologise for my shirt for those of you watching via the website. That should encourage you to switch that on. Harriet, welcome again. Now,
thank you.
We have some big news, don't we? We're welcoming you to the LBC presenter team today.
Oh, I thought it was just my date night with you. Date night with Dale.
Bless you. No, you're going to be appearing every month.
Indeed.
Hopefully on the second Monday in every month, right up until the general election. We've already got dates into the autumn, so we're delighted about that. We haven't got a sort of handle for it yet, but you're joining Nick Clegg, Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage. How does it feel to be on the same team as them?
Well, it feels like that there's not very many women on that team, but so I'm glad to get into it. Anyway, I enjoy listening to the others, so let's see whether or not I can hack it. Well,
0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Harriet's up for us answering any questions. Well, I think more or less any questions. I might have to intervene once or twice, you never know. You can text your questions also to 84850, tweet them at LBC or at Ian Dale, or you can email ian at lbc.co.uk. Well, let's get cracking with Mohammed, who's in Crawley. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello there.
Hi, what would you like to ask?
I would like to firstly ask, do you think we were right to go into war, to go into Iraq?
Nice, simple. Well, I say a simple question. It's not quite that simple, is it? But did you vote for it?
I did vote for it, and a lot of fears were expressed at the time that it would make things worse rather than better, and that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, which was the basis on which we went in. And it has to be said that the fears that people had at the time have been vindicated. But I actually think that what we're seeing in Iraq now, I don't agree. So basically, the people who expressed concerns at the time, I think, were right, but I don't think that laying at the door now of that decision, what's happening in Iraq now, is actually right. What do you think, Mohammed?
Well, hang on a second before we go back to Mohammed. Do you regret your vote now?
Well, at the time, my concern was that there was weapons of mass destruction there, and had we gone in and discovered that there was chemical weapons, biological weapons, all waiting to be unleashed, and remember, he'd already used weapons of mass destruction on the Kurds in his own country, then we would have been proved right. But actually, we did the invasion. It was not supposed to be just for regime change, although obviously it did turn out to be regime change, and there was a failure of planning for post-war, which meant that, it looks like with hindsight it was not right to be getting rid of the army in the way that we did, and it left them more vulnerable. So, I mean, it's easy to say with the benefit of hindsight, but I think that had we been right in what we believed at the time, it would have been right. But the fears were vindicated,
tying yourself
basically.
Up in knots there. It's a simple question. Do you regret your vote?
Yes. I do, because actually it turns out that the basis on which we did that vote was wrong. Because
when Ed Miliband was elected leader, you were seen in the front row clapping when he made some comments about how it was wrong, and David Miliband was filmed turning to you and saying you voted for it. Why are you clapping? Because it turned out it was wrong, and that the concerns that people had and the opposition that people had, they were right, and we were wrong. Tony Blair, do you listen to what he says any longer?
Well, I think it's very difficult to be a former Prime Minister, and I think that this is a face. I remember seeing this with Edward Heath and Margaret Thatcher. I remember seeing this with Margaret Thatcher and John Major. The only one who seems to have been able to recognise that you have your time when you're Prime Minister, and then afterwards it's somebody else's turn, or you have your time as leader of the party, and then in a way you have to step back and let the next person lead the party. But I think that is sometimes easier said than done, and I think in a way what Tony Blair did, which was leading us into an election, winning 3 general elections, rescuing the health service, introducing the national minimum wage, rebuilding all the schools. Some great things were done when he was Prime Minister, and I think we should be really proud of those. But I think to be now, after he stopped being Prime Minister, we got a new leader of the Labour Party, I think that it's best for the Labour Party to be presented by the current generation of leadership and not the previous generation.
So, some people would say that, you've been a part of the leadership of the Labour Party for quite some years now.
Yeah, but I still am. I'm not a former anything yet. And actually, when I am a former, please don't subject me to the temptation of giving my views to somebody who takes over after me.
We absolutely will.
No, because, then don't let me give in to that temptation, because actually, the trouble, this is the time that you have when you're elected to do something and you speak on behalf of the party. And actually, the trouble is you're so full of knowledge and experience and opinions when you've been doing something like being Prime Minister for 10 years that it's sometimes quite difficult to resist putting those in. But actually you've had your time. If you've been Prime Minister for 10 years, that's what should define
let's
you.
Find out what Mohammed's answer to his own question is. Mohammed, go ahead.
Well, obviously, as Ms. Harman said, we do have hindsight to look on now. But the evidence that was given for the reasons to go to war was that, yes, there were weapons of mass destruction. And again, there was evidence that Saddam had used weapons of mass destruction against the Kurds. He had massacred hundreds of thousands of people over the years. And, everybody believed it. But now if we were to say now, should we have gone in for regime change? Would it have been the same vote? Would it have been anything? Would we have the same results if it was voted upon in Parliament? Well, for most of Iraq and most of the Kurds, being a Kurd myself, the weapons of mass destruction wasn't the crucial part of going to war with Iraq for us. What we wanted was to get rid of Saddam, because he was a dictator that used weapons of mass destruction against his own people for many years. He had killed, like I said, hundreds of thousands of people. We're still finding mass graves in Iraq. The chemicals, weapons that he's used is still causing health problems for people in the region that were gassed. It's going to be years before Iraq can recover from that.
Okay, Mohammed, thank you for that. Boris Johnson called Tony Blair unhinged this morning. Clearly, I imagine that you wouldn't go along with that.
Well, not at all. And I just think that that's kind of rude, basically. And let's remember that Tony Blair was re-elected in 2005 after that very controversial decision to use force in Iraq. So he was re-elected after that, albeit it was very divisive and there was deeply held views against it. As I say, views which have been called right. But I think that I just don't think it helps the debate when there's such difficult situations to be faced in the future to talk about people being unhinged.
But as a former Prime Minister who had won 3 general elections, he was never defeated in a general election, similar to Margaret Thatcher in a way. Should we not be listening to these elder statesmen more than we seem to? You said earlier that you thought, well, maybe ex-Prime Ministers should just disappear and not be heard of again. Surely that's to miss out on some of the wisdom and advice that they can pass on.
Well, I think he's given evidence, Tony Blair's given evidence to the Chilcot inquiry, and that was all very much in the public domain. And obviously we've got the Chilcot report coming forward shortly.
Sometime.
At some stage. So I think that basically what you've done is your record, what you've done is your legacy, and then the argument has to be taken forward, because otherwise what you're doing is simply justifying what you did, and nobody's really interested in somebody justifying what they did.
But reading between the lines, you're effectively saying that Tony Blair should shut up.
Well, no, I'm just probably thinking about myself, actually, in a selfish way, and thinking, what would I do if I was him? I think it's very difficult to be a former Prime Minister when you're such a young man. Remember, Tony Blair became Prime Minister at a very young age, and therefore he still felt in his prime when he stood down. But I think that actually we've got a new generation of leadership, and he needs to, I think, let them take it forward. I haven't really got anything else to say about that.
But when you see Tony Blair appearing on the Andrew Marr show and writing this 2,800-word essay, is there part of you, and maybe some of your colleagues as well, you sort of slightly tear your hair out and think, oh, not again, because it just reminds people of the past and we're trying to move on to the future?
Well, it's not so much about reminding people of the past, because nobody's going to forget how strongly they felt in 2003. But I don't want it to confuse people as to whether or not that is the current Labour Party view, and we don't want different voices, that he's not actually representing the current position of the Labour Party. And so to the extent that it kind of muddles people up as to what our view is, and what view we're putting forward about the situation in Syria and in Iraq and in Iran, I think therefore it's not helpful. And in terms of justifying what he did, I think it's very easy if you're being attacked to feel you need to justify it. But sometimes it's better to let your actions to speak for themselves.
I will make a promise. We're going to get through more than one call a quarter in future, but it's such a big subject at the moment. I thought we'd start off with that. Lots of reaction to the fact that you're going to be doing this every month, Harriet. Michael Deacon, the sketch writer from The Telegraph, he says, Harriet Harman to host a new Call Clegg-style phone-in every month on LBC. Harangue Harriet, or more likely, be harangued by Harriet. Well, there hasn't been any haranguing so far. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. If you'd like to ask Harriet Harman a question, she's here with me until 8. And you can, of course, watch us on the website as well at lbc.co.uk. This is LBC. It's 16 minutes past 7.
This is Lewis Gillingham in the LBC Travel Centre. Starting on the trains, where there's still delays of over an hour to and from Victoria. That's after a gas leak just near to Battersea Park, so that's affecting Southern, South Eastern and Gatwick Express services. There's cancellations because of congestion on the line at East Croydon, so First Capital Connect a warning of 20-minute delays. Chiltern Railways, they're not running to and from Marylebone. That's after a fire damaged signalling cables yesterday. Services therefore terminating at West Ruislip or Harrow on the Hill to connect you with the Underground. On the roads, in Bounds Green Road, that has just reopened. It was closed for a couple of hours after an accident just by the tube station. An accident on the A21 Tweedy Road northbound at Bromley North Station is blocking a lane. On the M4, the second Severn crossing, 2 lanes were closed due to an overturned camper van westbound. That's all open now, but still delays if you're heading into Wales. And in the West Midlands, there's delays on the M5 northbound at the end of the motorway where it meets the M6, and that's after a car broke down earlier. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Forget rush hour. Drive business meetings from home.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
With racshop.co.uk for great savings on European driving essentials.
Deep inside the Sky Sports Research Centre, there's a room containing something so top secret, it's protected by 12 highly trained security guards, 14 high-tech heat-sensing cameras, and one dog called Max. But now, it's time to reveal to our Sky Sports customers what's inside. Go to sky.com/2 years free to find out more. Just remember, it's top secret, all right? Sky. Believe in better.
This shower's freezing!
Told you the boiler was on the blink months ago.
Don't wait till the winter returns to replace your boiler. Trade in your old boiler now and save £400 on a new energy-efficient one installed by British Gas. Plus, you may be eligible for up to £270 Green Deal government cashback. Call 0800 754 754 or visit britishgas.co.uk. Hurry, offer ends 30th of June. Conditions apply.
So Chris was down here again, video calling his girlfriend.
He says there's a fantastic vibe in our flat.
Yeah, it's called fibre optic broadband. Why can't he get his own?
He says you can't put a price on stuff like that.
Well, you can actually, and here it is. Look, right here in this ad.
Says he's a free spirit, man.
He's not a free spirit. He's a freeloader.
Don't miss the BT Big Spring deal with fibre optic BT Infinity Extra. £8 a month for the first 6 months.
£16 monthly from month 7 plus BT line $15.99 a month. Limited coverage. Introductory offer ends 25th of June. New customers 18-month term, then £18 monthly, 40 gigabytes usage and Net Protect Plus. Payable by direct debit, £6.95 delivery, £30 activation. Terms apply.
If you need a minicab, it's now even easier to book with the King Group, London's local minicab company. Get the King Group iPhone or Android app on your phone, get a quote, book and track your car real time, and see if it really is just around the corner. Getting a minicab couldn't be easier. Use the King Group iPhone or Android apps, or call 0207 228 5555. That's 0207 228 5555. The King Group, London's local minicab company.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
It's 7:20 here on LBC. We have Harriet Harman with us in the studio, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. She's going to be joining me every second Sunday of every month, apart from August, because everyone goes on holiday in August, and even politicians are entitled to a holiday. So do join us, and you can put your questions to her live. You can watch us via the website, lbc.co.uk, if you'd like to do that as well. All subjects are welcome. 0345 6060 973. I was going to say no holds barred. Right, let's go to Grant, who's in Eltham. Hello, Grant.
Good evening.
Hi, what would you like to ask Harriet?
Yeah, just over the past few weeks or months, obviously, Ed Miliband has had a couple of PR blunders, we could say, and he's forever now seemed to be apologising and showing a sign of a weakness as a leader. He's obviously either doesn't understand the feelings of the people or he doesn't know what he's doing. Is it time that he actually steps down and lets a stronger member of the party step up and try and take the party through to the next election?
What PR blunders are you talking about?
Well, obviously, there's the one in with the Sun newspaper at the end of last week where he tries to make out he's patriotic, obviously stirred a couple of people, and before the story had even broke, there he is, stood up there making an apology, when most of the nation hadn't even realised what he had done, right, or were even bothered about it. And yet there he is apologising straight away just because of a small community were disaffectioned. As a leader, surely he's got to be able to make decisions and stick by them.
OK, Grant, we'll come back to you in a second. Harriet, does he make a fair point that particularly that incident last week with the Sun over Hillsborough, that didn't show Ed Miliband to be a great leader, did it?
Well, I don't agree. And I think that if he was asked by the Sun, along with the other party leaders, to back the England team, and there's hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people who read the Sun, why should he say no? I mean,
but
it's
it was
a
promoting
big
the Sun. I mean, OK, there was the England team on the front page, but it was promoting the Sun.
Well, no, does he really want to snub all the Sun readers by saying he won't be in a paper that they buy?
Well,
I mean, I object to some of the things about the Sun, like page 3, but there's a lot of people that read the Sun, and therefore, if I get a chance to engage with the Sun, I actually do that. But I also think, Grant, that he was right to recognise the absolute depth of feeling that there is in Merseyside, not just a small group of feeling there is bitterness about what happened at Hillsborough and the role that the Sun played and how terrible they made people feel at a time of grieving. And of course, that doesn't ever go away for the people who lost their loved ones or whose loved ones were injured.
To the general public, it was a PR disaster. It showed Ed Miliband to be a weak leader.
Well, I don't think it did show him.
Well, you can't do that and then suddenly apologise for it and expect to be taken seriously. No,
he said, and I think he stands by his decision to do it, but he also recognises the depth of the feeling that there is in Merseyside. And I think that at the end of the day,
either he was right to pose with it or he wasn't. You can't have it both ways.
No, he was right to pose for it, and he was right to recognise. No, he was right to recognise.
That's a very, very strange contortion, if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, I don't think so, and I think he's damned if he did, and he's damned if he didn't. If he would be snubbing all the Sun
A real
readers.
leader would have said, I totally understand how people in Liverpool feel. They should move on because the Sun has apologised. There's nobody that works for the Sun now that was there then. Tony Blair posed with the Sun before 1997, the front page of the Sun, where they basically endorsed him. So if it was right for Tony Blair in 1997, why should Ed Miliband have a problem with it in 2014?
Well, I think there's a number of, complicated things tied up with that. I think the idea of turning around to people in Merseyside who lost family members and saying, "Oh well, move on," I don't think that will, that will never ever happen for people, and they will live with it, and they will see all the evidence coming out at the inquest, and it, to lose a family member in such awful circumstances, it is a terrible thing. But that doesn't mean that there should be a boycott of the Sun by the leader of the Labour Party. So I don't think he's a weak leader. I think he's shown, like, for example, with insisting on a price freeze, he's prepared to stand up against the energy companies, to say that we need to have a Leveson inquiry after the phone hacking, which no other party leader was prepared to do.
I agree with you on that. I think that in many ways he's actually been quite a brave leader in some of the things that he's done. But certainly in the last few weeks, when you had sort of this few PR disasters during the European elections, and now it builds an image.
I mean, at the end of the day, what people want is to be be confident that he understands that despite the fact that the Tories and the Lib Dems are saying everything's marvellous in the economy, to understand that people are still finding things hard, and have somebody in number 10 who is actually on their side and understands how things are for them. And, you know, this thing about photographs, I think they can be overplayed. I mean, I remember I got absolutely panned by the press for when all the police in my constituency were going out in stab vests, and because I was going out with them, I went out in a stab vest as well. And then it was like all over the papers, oh, she's afraid to go out in her own constituency without a stab vest. And the whole thing was absolutely ridiculous, and carried then on the BBC and all the other newspapers, and it was all
but
rubbish.
You see, if I was a leading politician, I would have media advisors who would tell me not to do things like that, and warn me of the dangers of posing with the Sun, and not warn me after the event.
Well, but basically, would you say to him that it's right that all the people who read The Sun and the England football team, that he should be distancing himself from them?
No, I wouldn't. I'd say you pose with that, and you be proud of it. And you don't backtrack on it. You stick by your guns. Yes, he did. He apologised.
He said he can understand how badly the people in Merseyside feel, and that was quite rightful empathy with them. But he didn't say he was wrong to do it, and he would have been damned if he did and damned if he didn't. And at the end of the day,
okay. Well, let's see what Grant makes of it. Grant, what do you make of Harriet's answer?
I'm with you on this, and I think that you can turn around. To be a leader, especially of this nation, especially the way the world is at this moment, you need to be decisive, whether it be in your actions, right, or in what you state. If you go and do something, you've got to stick by your guns to a certain extent. And to come across and that answer there just doesn't wash. You can't sit on the fence. We're talking about a man now on the international playing field of what he's going to be doing up against other statesmen. You know what I mean? You just got to turn on the news and just see what's going on in the world. He can't make up a decision on whether he poses with a newspaper or not. Now, I don't care what paper he poses with or whatever like that. Yeah, and he was back in the nation's football team, and that was all good. And there was other celebrities doing it as well. But the minute he thinks that he might lose a couple of votes, he went around, turned his back on it completely. It went against what he'd just done. It happened. It was there. He should have stood up for himself and said, like you said, listen, Liverpool, time to move on.
Okay.
This, that, the other. Things have got forward.
All right, Grant, thanks for that. Do you accept, though, that there are even a lot of people said about Margaret Thatcher, well, I may not have agreed with her, but at least she knew her own mind. She'd make decisions, and people respected her as a strong leader. Same, I think, actually, with Tony Blair. Ed Miliband hasn't quite got to that point, has he?
Well, except that I remember, let's not rewrite history, when Margaret Thatcher brought in the poll tax and everybody said, look, you've made a mistake. And she said, the lady's not for turning, I'm going to be the Iron Lady. And actually, she didn't understand what people were feeling. And sometimes I think people think that they want somebody who's not going to take any notice of what people are feeling, and sometimes people want people to show that they do recognise that there are, you know, different variations of views. But, you know, you in a way, if you apologise, then everybody says, oh, well, then you're flip-flopping and you don't know what you're doing. But the rest of the time, everybody's wanting...
I think it's the context of apology, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Adam in Tolworth. Hello, Adam.
Hello there. Good evening. I wanted to ask, will the Labour Party be ensuring that there's protection for disabled people as akin to race discrimination, faith, sex discrimination, etc.?
Well, we did actually. We put that in the Equality Act, and we said, which was what we brought in 2010 before we left government, and we said it's wrong to discriminate against somebody on the grounds of their disability, and also public organisations have got a duty to actually make sure that they promote inclusion of people with disabilities and preventing discrimination. But the trouble is, since this government has got in, the Equality and Human Rights Commission has been downgraded, and therefore pressing forward on those rights, whether it's age discrimination, gender discrimination, race discrimination, and very importantly, discrimination against people with disabilities, has been put on the back burner, and I think that's very disappointing.
Should it be a hate crime to sort of actively discriminate? I don't mean sort of the kind of discrimination that we talk about, well, there'd have to be ramps going into shops or something, but if someone verbally attacks a disabled person because they're disabled, should that be made a hate crime?
Well, I think that judges do take that into account when they're sentencing, and the Sentencing Guidelines Council, which actually lays down the things that judges should take into account when they're deciding what sentence to give after there's been a conviction, they will actually do that and regard it as an aggravated offence if somebody is being persecuted or being subjected to a criminal assault because they've got a disability. So that's already kind of halfway into the law. But I do think that, there was a lot of progress. I mean, when I think back to it, the whole idea that for example, if you're in a wheelchair, that we should make sure that does not mean that you can't go out, you can't go to a cinema, you can't go to a restaurant, you've got to be out of society, you can't work. Yeah. That we should make sure that everybody who's got anything to contribute is able to contribute and is able to be part of the wider community and society and the world of work. I mean, we've made a lot of progress on that, but we haven't got anywhere near where we need to get. And that's why the Equality and Human Rights Commission, have you heard a squeak out of them since we left government?
Not since Trevor Phillips left.
Exactly. That's the point, is that we need people to champion the issues that Adam is raising here.
If you're saying that they've been silenced, then they need somebody who's a bit sparkier than who. I don't even know who the head of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission now is, which probably says a lot.
Well, exactly, it certainly does.
Maybe Trevor needs to have a comeback. Adam, thank you for your call. It's been a sparky 30 minutes so far. We've got another 30 minutes to come. 0345 6060 973. If you'd like to ask Harriet Harman a question, that is the number to call. I'm Ian Dale at Drive. LBC News Time, it's 7:31. Rupert Bhatia has the news headlines.
The Deputy Labour leader Harriet Harman has told LBC she regrets voting for the Iraq War in 2003.
A lot of fears were expressed at the time that it would make things worse rather than better, and that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, which was the basis on which we went in. And it has to be said that the fears that people had at the time have been vindicated.
Harriet Harman is the latest politician to sign up for a regular show with LBC. She'll answer your calls with Ian Dale every month. Her comments on Iraq come after the Foreign Secretary William Hague warned a number of British nationals are believed to be fighting alongside the Islamist militant group who've taken over large parts of the country. An 18-year-old Russian student arrested after an incident that prompted 2 evacuations and a controlled explosion at a Newcastle university has been charged with manufacturing an explosive device. He'll appear in court tomorrow. There are delays for rail commuters in London this evening after services at 2 of the capital's busiest stations were suspended. No trains are running at Marylebone after a fire yesterday. Earlier, trains into and out of Victoria were suspended for 40 minutes. After a gas leak, trains are now running again, but are subject to delays. The business news. The Bank of England says productivity in the UK economy remains 16% below where it should be, but it doesn't know why. Its latest quarterly bulletin says that since the financial crisis nearly 7 years ago, productivity has been exceptionally weak. A union's calling for free door-to-door advice about energy efficiency to be offered to households across the UK. Unison believes low-income households should be allowed £10,000 worth of free energy efficiency work on their homes. And there are calls for employers to swap face-to-face interviews for trials over several weeks to try to get more people with learning difficulties into work. Remploy says around half of disabled people have a job, but that employment rates among those with learning disabilities are scandalously low at just 7%. In the city, the FTSE 100 index has closed down 23 points at 67.54.
LBC Business.
With the Times Business. Everything you need to know on the go.
LBC weather. Some bright spells into this evening in London and the southeast. Mostly dry overnight, a low of 12 Celsius. Across the UK, a mostly cloudy night with some light showers in northern England. Tomorrow, sunshine in England and Wales, southern Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, with rain in northern Scotland. LBC News Time. It's 7:34.
This is Lewis Gillingham in the LBC Travel Centre. Still have long delays on the trains in and out of Victoria. Delays of over an hour continue after a gas leak just near to Battersea Park. So it's affecting southern trains, southeastern trains and Gatwick Express services as well. There's also delays because of congestion on the line at East Croydon. So First Capital Connect, a warning of 20-minute delays to their services through there. Chiltern Railways still not running to and from Marylebone after a fire damaged the signalling cables yesterday. Services are therefore terminating at West Ruislip or Harrow on the Hill to connect you with the Underground instead. And there's delays of up to 15 minutes on C2C between Barking and Fenchurch Street due to electrical supply problems at Barking. On the roads, an accident on the A21 Tweedy Road northbound at Bromley North Station is blocking a lane. Roadworks on Bishopsgate southbound at Liverpool Street are causing delays. And in Southampton, the A33 Bassett Avenue is closed from the A35, and that's due to an accident. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Stay ahead of the game. Leave travel behind.
2 extra hot skinny lattes.
Leave your skinny latte to go.
Doors to manual and cross-check.
And take in some relaxing cafe culture in the sunshine. Fly from London Southend to 5 European destinations from $29.99 one way with Flybe. Flying to Rennes, Groningen and Munster Osnabrück from the 5th of June and Antwerp and Caen Normandy from the 3rd of July. Groningen from $34.99. Visit flybe.com. Credit card charges apply.
Is it possible to sell your property for the asking price or above in 7 days? We think so. We're Paramount Properties. Our open days allow vendors to receive multiple offers after 1 day of viewings, and this year 95% of our open day properties north of the Thames sold subject to contract within 7 days. And if we don't do the same with your property, we'll charge 0% commission. Paramount's 7-day promise. Visit paramountproperties.co.uk/radio. Conditions apply.
Is your company thinking of moving office? If so, this could be the perfect opportunity to revolutionise your business, transform your workplace, and inspire your staff. Speak to Maris Interiors, who've been designing and fitting out workplaces for over 3 decades. Book your free consultation, attend a free seminar, or get your free guidebook. Go to officerelocation.co.uk. Maris. Workplace design experts.
This is Kate. Here we find her in a new environment, the gym. After years of being slumped on the train and sat behind a desk, her body is weak. But that's all about to change. Now Kate's discovered online meetings using GoToMeeting by Citrix. Working remotely gives her more time to pull the business in and work out.
Come on!
Go, Kate! Confirmed orders and firmer thighs will be yours. Let us point you to a better work-life balance. Start your free 30-day trial. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk. Go you!
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
With racshop.co.uk for great savings on European driving essentials.
It's 7:37 here on LBC. You're listening to Call Harriet Harman, 0345 6060 973, if you'd like to ask her a question between now and 8. What was your reaction, Harriet, to Sajid Javid? For those who don't know, Harriet's also Shadow Culture Secretary. Sajid is your opposite number. He said in his first speech since becoming Secretary of State for Culture, I like Star Trek and I like you too. I can't think of any other Culture Secretary who would have ever said that.
Well, I think it's fair enough for him to say what he likes. He's got an important job to do. We've got brilliant arts, culture and creative industries here, and he needs to be backing them up, and he's just trying to explain a bit about where he's coming from and his background on it.
Are you a bit of a Trekkie?
I'm not, but I like you too.
What about, what do you think the people in the Royal Shakespeare Company might have made of those comments?
Well, he's getting out and about, so that's good. But the point is what he's actually going to do to make sure that the government doesn't just say, oh, well, it's all down to philanthropy and we don't need to worry about kids not getting music lessons in schools. And I mean, actually, it's what he does that matters. And the concern is that because the government has not been backing up arts and culture in the way that they should be.
What, you mean spending more money on them?
Well, no, but just, for example, making sure that there's music lessons and drama lessons and art lessons in schools for all children. I think it's their right to have that sort of education. And Michael Gove has been downplaying creativity in the curriculum, and I think that will be a real loss for a generation of young people. And the talent pool does not just come from young people whose parents can afford to pay for lessons, or people who are in private schools with fantastic arts or music departments. It actually should be able to come from kids from all around the country, and that's the worry.
Okay.
It's a narrowing, and that's what Sajid Javid has got to be standing up for.
If you want to watch us, you can do so. lbc.co.uk is where you go. We're in glorious HD, whatever that means. Now, let's go to another call. Linda is in Isleworth. Hello, Linda.
Hi. I just wanted to ask Harriet what she thought about Vince Cable's, when he was saying the other week about limiting the amount people can borrow on mortgages to 3.5 times their salary or joint income.
So basically, do you agree with the mortgage cap?
Well, I do think that there needs to be a addressing of the problem of the bubble of housing prices in London, without a doubt.
Do you think it is a bubble?
Yes. I mean, it obviously is, if you look at the speed of which they've gone up. But I think what's also happening is that it's not the case in the rest of the country.
So what's causing this housing bubble? It can't just be sort of people are borrowing too much on mortgages. Is it foreign investors? What's causing it?
Well, part of it is that there's a shortage of supply and there needs to be more building. And that's why a lot of the councils are really pressing on with big building programmes. And that's why one of the things that we've said is that if developers have got land, which has got planning permission, that there should be a use it or lose it, that they should either, because
so the state would confiscate it. I mean, that is red claw socialism, isn't it?
No, it would mean that there could be compulsory purchase, for example. That's not red claw socialism. It's basically just recognising that if you've got a shortage of land and you've got a shortage of homes, and it's putting the price up beyond people's reach. I mean, there's a really serious situation both on rents, but also on homes to buy
of course,
in London. And there could be measures on that.
A mortgage cap is effectively a cap on aspiration, isn't it? Because it then affects mainly, I guess, first-time buyers. Now, I don't know how old you were when you bought your first house. I think I was, 27, and I did borrow about 2.5 times my mortgage. But, of course, at that time, in the late 1980s, you could do that. You can't now. And what Vince Cable is effectively telling people is they aren't going to be able to get on the housing ladder.
Well, I think an awful lot of people can't even begin to hope to get on the housing ladder, whatever they feel they're trying to earn, because the prices are shooting away. Once you're on it, well, then you're afloat in London. But for people trying to be on in their first time, and that's why building more homes is the problem. It's a supply and demand issue, and we need to be building more homes. And in fact, there's been a slowdown in house building in the last few years, when in fact we need quite the opposite. And also that would be good for providing jobs in the building industry.
Let's go back to Linda. Linda, what would you like to say? I gather you've got an interesting story about what's happened to you.
Well, it's just, I mean, the situation with us would be that we've got a house that's got quite a lot of equity in it, but our mortgage is up to be renewed at the end of this year, and we would be in a situation that we wouldn't, if this happened, that we wouldn't be able to borrow enough money to carry on with the mortgage that we've got now. And obviously there'd be other people in the same sort of position, which would mean that we'd probably have to sell our house, but there'd be nobody to buy it.
So sorry, Linda. Let's just get this straight. Are you in favour of the principle of a mortgage cap, or do you think that Vince Cable is wrong? Harriet.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking Linda, and I was waiting for.
No.
I think that it's he's just airing a thought, isn't he? It's not a firm proposal.
Well, actually, the Chancellor, much to my surprise, then went and said it in his Mansion House speech. So it's something clearly the government are thinking of imposing. I mean, if the housing market gets out of control, they want to have that as a lever to prevent it. I mean, effectively, what you said in your first answer.
But the thing is that the housing market in London is very different from the housing market outside London. So what you could be doing is to try and rein back the housing market in London, which has got stupid, you then find you put a whole load of people outside London in a very, very difficult situation. And that's why it's just about, above all, it's about building more homes. And also it's about the people who are renting as well, because the rents in London have gone through the roof.
How can we have confidence that there would be more houses built if you came into power? Because really, in the last Labour government, there was record low numbers of houses being built. Except in this government, it hasn't changed an awful lot.
But actually, it's not true to say that. We actually spent billions of pounds, because when we came in 1997, all the council estates had no maintenance because of the cuts on the Tory government under Thatcher at the time. So basically there was people's windows needed replacing, their roofs need replacing, the lifts had broken down, they'd all fallen. We had
total exaggeration.
No, it's not.
Well, it is, because it was down to the councils actually to decide how to spend their money.
Well, no, because
they decided to spend it on other things.
No, the councils had been absolutely not able to spend enough money to keep their housing stock in a reasonable situation. So that was our first priority.
Let's get a quick call from Kevin in Ruislip. I think you'll like this one. Kevin, hi.
Hello, Ian, and good evening, Harriet.
Good evening.
I was just saying about the coming up to the next election. I don't think there will be no overall majority. Are the Labour Party willing to go into coalition government? If you look at the beginning of the 20th century, the working class have been left behind, and that's how the Labour movement started, and from that you got the Labour Party. I think there's a cluster of seats in the south east, ex-dockers and printers and Ford workers. I think UKIP might pick up those, and who would your coalition partners be?
So effectively, would you go into coalition with any of the other parties?
Well, since I'm here on this radio programme, I don't want to look as though I'm refusing to answer the question. But I have to say that we are putting forward a manifesto which we think is a good manifesto.
Look, we take it as read that you want to get an overall majority.
Yeah, but I'm not a commentator. I'm not a speculator, and I'm not going to sit back and do a commentary.
It's quite simple, because last time you were willing to go into coalition with the Liberal Democrats. There were negotiations that were held. So surely it's easy to say, well, in principle, if there isn't an overall majority, obviously we'd be open to it.
Well, it is true that after the election, when nobody had an overall majority, we did have discussions with the Liberal Democrats. But actually, as it turned out, if you add together all the Labour people with the Lib Dems, the Lib Dem MPs, there wasn't enough to do a majority.
But it's a possibility after the next election. You've got to admit that.
Well, I know, but the trouble is, if I say it's a possibility, it's like saying there's a possibility that we are going to go into the election and fight hard with excellent candidates and a good manifesto and lose it. Well, why would I sit here and say that? It's like, saying England are going to go in and lose against Uruguay. No, they're going to fight hard and score the goal.
Do you know, we might come on to that in a few minutes. That's a good radio link you're learning as a presenter, Harriet. 0345 6060 973. We have another 10 minutes to get your questions to Harriet Harman. And, of course, you can watch us at lbc.co.uk. This is LBC at 7:47.
This is Lewis Gillingham in the LBC Travel Centre. Starting on the trains, where there's still delays of over an hour in and out of Victoria after a gas leak near to Battersea Park. So that's affecting Southern, South Eastern and Gatwick Express services. There's delays because of congestion on the line at East Croydon as well. So First Capital Connect, a warning of 20-minute delays to their services. Chiltern Railway is not running to and from Marylebone after a fire-damaged signalling cables yesterday. So services are terminating at West Ruislip or Harrow on the Hill to connect you with the underground instead. On the roads, M25 anti-clockwise, one lane is closed on the exit slip road at junction 24 at Potters Bar. That's due to a broken down lorry, not really causing too much of a delay. A21 Tweedy Road northbound at Bromley North Station is next in there, blocking off a lane. In Southampton, the A33 Bassett Avenue is closed from the A35. That's due to an accident. And in Lancashire, the A56 is closed in Colne. That's after an accident several hours ago. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in half an hour.
This is LBC. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
With the RAC. 5-star rated breakdown cover at home and abroad.
At Back2, we've been advising customers on back-related problems for over 25 years. Based in the heart of London, our showroom offers over 400 products that could relieve your back pain. We source products from all over the world, such as office chairs, sit-stand desks, beds, mattresses, orthopedic pillows, home chairs, children's furniture and much more. Come and see us for free advice at Back2. Open every day in Wigmore Street and online at back2.co.uk. Get back to living with Back2.
And now, an important announcement for London drivers.
From the 16th of June, the congestion charge is going up to £11.50.
But you can reduce the cost by £1 a day with AutoPay.
Just register for £10 per vehicle at the official TfL website. Go to tfl.gov.uk/cc.
Transport for London. Every journey matters.
Are your teeth stopping you smiling? Do you hate the thought of false teeth? Look forward to a confident new you with dental implants from TDC Implant Centres. You can have a full set of fixed teeth restored in just one day, or an hour for a single tooth. Now you can eat what you want and smile when you want, in just one day. Don't delay. Call TDC Implant Centres on 0800 012 2086 or see smileinaday.co.uk.
Flexible plans and vans and other vehicles too. Down to Northgate, they're down the road and up your street and close to you. Down to Northgate, they'll fix you up and sort you out, won't leave you up the creek. Down to Northgate, you can hire with no palaver, telling your mate I'd rather hire a van from Northgate, their service can't be beat.
For flexible plans on a great range of vans, get down to Northgate Vehicle Hire today. Now open in locations across London. Text VANS to 60070 or visit downtonorthgate.com.
Oh! This shower's freezing! Told you the boiler was on the blink months ago.
Don't wait till the winter returns to replace your boiler. Trade in your old boiler now and save £400 on a new energy-efficient one installed by British Gas. Plus, you may be eligible for up to £270 Green Deal government cashback. Call 0800 754 754 or visit britishgas.co.uk. Hurry, offer ends 30th of June. Conditions apply.
Coming up at 8 on LBC. Clive Bull.
Trips to the dentist could soon be a thing of the past as scientists unveil a technique which removes the need for drilling and filling. Would you welcome this new approach? Do you try to avoid dental treatment? And can you always trust the advice of a dentist?
Leading Britain's conversation. Clive Bull. This evening from 8 on LBC.
Duncan Barks is here at 10. Clive Bull coming up in 9 minutes' time. If you go to lbc.co.uk, you can watch the rest of our hour with Harriet Harman on the website. Now, most important question of the evening so far, Harriet. Did you watch the football on Saturday night?
I did.
And what did you make of Phil Neville's punditry?
I didn't. Was I not listening to Phil Neville's punditry? I've heard comment on it since then, but I don't remember his non-enthusiastic situation. I certainly felt very enthusiastic
and now,
he scored that early goal.
Your Shadow Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. Should Wayne Rooney keep his place against Uruguay?
Yeah, but shouldn't he be placed somewhere else? Isn't this something Roy Hodgson's got to address himself to?
You've been briefed, haven't you?
No, I haven't. I'm just actually, and I am ignorant about this, I fully confess. However, I'm an enthusiast for watching the World Cup, and you get gripped by it, don't you? I hope it's on late on Thursday because I'm going to a meeting
8 o'clock, I'm afraid.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Which team has caught your eye so far? I've got Germany in the sweepstake, and they've just won 4-0. So
I've got Iran and Mexico. Is Iran any good at football?
We'll find out later on. I think possibly not. But have you got a sweepstake in the office?
We have. That's why I've got Iran and Mexico.
Okay.
But I do have to say that I think that the game, the Sunday night game was very exciting with France and Honduras, and I think that the goal line technology and but I thought the fouling made me very nervous.
Who do you support? And don't say Millwall because a little bit of me will die.
Well, I don't really support anybody but probably Crystal Palace.
We'll let you off that one. Right, let's go to Marion in Stevenage. Hello, Marion.
Oh, hello, Ian, and hello, Harriet.
Hello.
My question to Harriet is this. What is Labour's policies regarding faith schools?
Well, we're in favour of, and we want to see all schools being excellent schools, and there's been always many faith schools that have been excellent schools as well. So they're part of the mixture that has always been in this country from way back, from historical times. And so basically we support all those schools that are good schools, including good faith schools.
Marion?
I'm glad to hear that.
So what about the incident in Birmingham, Harriet? Because, of course, they weren't faith schools. They were just normal state schools, or I think one of them was an academy. Are you worried about the fact that a particular religion, and I suppose it could happen anywhere else as well, seems to have effectively perverted the school curriculum?
Well, I think the Ofsted report, when they went in and inspected these schools, was very worrying, and action certainly needs to be taken on it because, you know, although it's good for a school to be reflecting the local community and involve governors from the local community and celebrate the culture that the children are from in that community, it's not acceptable to have a narrowing down curriculum. And in one of them, for example, one of the schools, it was said that they banned music lessons as un-Islamic. Now that is, you can't have a situation where you've got a school which is publicly funded and for reasons of ultra-conservatism of one particular religion.
But even if it was a faith school, I mean, that surely is beyond the pale.
It is, yeah, it is. And that's why we're saying that they've got to do a broad and balanced curriculum, because that's what the children will need when they come out to be, you know, into life, into the workplace, and for the rest of their lives. They're entitled to a broad and balanced curriculum. But I do think that it has thrown up problems. I mean, Ed Miliband asking Prime Minister's questions last Wednesday. He asked David Cameron, if there's a problem about a school, who do people complain to? And the trouble is that now you've got 20,000 schools all being operated, not at any local level, but from behind a desk in Whitehall, and it's just not possible.
But some of these schools that have the problems were actually under the control of the local authority in Birmingham. So it's not, you can't just say, well, it's because there's no sort of intermediary between the school and the Department of Education.
No, but the role of that fewer and fewer of the schools are actually under the responsibility of local government. And I think that what we're proposing is that there should be a local somebody who's responsible for school standards, an independent person, but who works with the council, is also working with the
when the whole row broke up between Theresa May and Michael Gove, did you have any sort of sisterly feelings for Theresa May in that row?
Well, no, I just felt sorry for the fact that all the people who were waiting for their passports couldn't get the passports sorted out because she was having a ding-dong with Michael Gove over the leadership. I mean, because that's the point, is that if there's warring.
Do you really think that's what it was about? I mean, obviously you've got a lot of experience of this, looking at Gordon Brown and what happened in that government.
Well, I think there was a spat, wasn't there, between them? There was like bristling rivalry. And the difficulty with that is that they take their eye off the ball of what are people's ordinary problems, which is improving the schools, sorting out problems if there is a problem in the schools, which there was in Birmingham, dealing with all the problems that there are in the Home Office. And really, it's you know, they need to work as a team.
We've only got a minute and 3/4 left. Time for a quick question from Rajiv in Kingston. Hello, Rajiv.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for taking my call.
If you can be brief, I'd be grateful.
Yes. Actually, I want to ask Harriet. Hello, Harriet.
Hello.
How are you doing? I just want to ask you that how is the Labour government going to attend to the pressing issues of this country, of the plight of the people who have got into poverty of no reason? And how are you going to eradicate this poverty and removing the minimum wage to living wage for a lot of people?
Right, OK, Rajiv, we haven't got much time left. Harriet, 45 seconds,
Well, we're going to make sure that people don't get paid less than the minimum wage, and by properly enforcing it. And that's one thing that local authorities can help inspect and enforce the minimum wage. We're going to make sure that people who are working and working hard don't find, fewer of them should have to be claiming housing benefits and all sorts of tax credits because their employer's not paying them enough. We're going to help freeze people's fuel bills, and certainly in London also we're going to actually have measures which prevent rents going up through the roof. So I think there is a problem of the cost of living, and I think it's unfair for people to think that they're working really hard and they're slipping back.
OK, Raji, thank you very much for your call. Well, the next date for Harriet to come in for another hour is Monday the 14th from 7 to 8, so put that in your diary now. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's always challenging to speak to people and hear what they're saying.
Particularly when you have no idea what the questions are going to be.
None at all.
Harriet, thank you very much indeed. Well, I'm back tomorrow at 4. Coming up at 10, it's Duncan Barks. But next, it's Clive Bull.
Ian, thank you. And coming up after the news, food